This coin almost ended up in a handful of loose change at a gas station. The clerk almost didn't look twice. But the moment he turned it under the light, he froze. What he held wasn't just a coin. It was a time capsule. A mistake. A miracle. And it would later sell for a staggering $1.6 million. Collectors still talk about it. Dealers still hunt for it. And right now, somewhere in America, one of these rare quarters might be sitting quietly in a kitchen drawer, in a coffee can of loose change, or hidden in a forgotten jar on the back of a shelf. The 1776 to 1976 D Washington quarter, a coin made to celebrate America's bicentennial. Millions were minted. They flooded pockets and purses across the country. But a tiny fraction carried a secret. A secret that could change someone's life forever. And here's where it gets strange. During production at the Denver Mint, a small number of quarters left the presses with microscopic flaws, the kind of flaws that almost no one noticed until decades later. In some cases, the wrong planchet, the blank piece of metal, was used. In others, the strike was so crisp and perfect, so untouched by human hands, that it remained in flawless condition for nearly half a century. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man in Colorado walked into a coin shop with a small Ziploc bag of change he'd collected over years. In that bag was a 1776 to 1976 D quarter that looked like it had been minted that morning. The luster was breathtaking. The edges razor sharp. And when it was examined under magnification, the details of the drummer boy reverse were so pristine, so perfect, it sent shivers through the grading team. It was sent to auction. The bidding war was fierce. Phone bidders, internet bidders, people in the room all battling for the same small piece of American history. When the hammer finally fell, the room went silent, before erupting in gasps. Over $1.6 million. For a single quarter. Why would anyone pay such an unimaginable sum for a coin most people toss into a vending machine without a thought? The answer lies in rarity and perfection. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of bicentennial quarters. Most were circulated heavily, scratched, dented, and worn down. But an ultra-rare combination of factors, flawless mint state condition, possible wrong planchet errors, or doubled die obverse details, can launch the value into the stratosphere. And here's the chilling part: you could be holding one right now, and not even know it. One woman in Texas found hers in a roll of quarters from the bank. She almost spent it at a laundromat. Instead, she looked closer and noticed the edges were different. Sharper. Cleaner. She got it graded. That coin sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not millions, but enough to pay off her house. Collectors were shocked. Dealers began scouring every bicentennial quarter they could find, looking for that same combination of traits. Some coins were found with no mint mark when there should have been one. Others showed dramatic doubling on the letters and numbers, small mistakes worth a fortune. But here's what most people miss: these million-dollar quarters aren't just rare. They are immaculate. Not pretty good. Not almost new. They are in perfect mint state condition, graded MS68 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. Even a tiny nick or scratch can slash the value from a fortune to just 25 cents, and yet, it happens. Ordinary people keep stumbling across them. A retired veteran in Florida found one in his grandchild's piggy bank. A college student in Oregon spotted one in a friend's coin jar. Each time, the discovery made headlines, and each time, collectors scrambled, afraid they had just missed their chance. A construction worker in Nevada. He was pouring change into a snack machine on his lunch break when a glint caught his eye. He pulled the coin back, examined it, and something told him to hold on to it. Months later, at a coin show, he learned it was one of the rarest bicentennial quarters ever found, and he walked away a millionaire. This is why, even decades later, the search never stops. Dealers are rushing to buy up unsearched rolls of quarters from the 1970s. Collectors are obsessively checking the date and mint mark. And ordinary people, just like you, are finding life-changing treasures in the most unexpected places. But there's a catch, and it's what separates the dreamers from the finders. You have to know exactly what to look for. First, the date should read 1776 to 1976. This is not a standard Washington quarter. It features the iconic drummer boy on the reverse instead of the usual eagle. Second, check the mint mark. The D4 Denver should be present on the obverse side, to the right of Washington's hair ribbon. Third, and most importantly, examine the condition. If it looks like it just came off the minting press, with no scratches, no wear, and brilliant luster, you might have something extraordinary. But if you have magnification, look for doubling on the date, the lettering, or the drummer boy's details. If you suspect an error, never clean the coin. Cleaning can destroy its value instantly. Instead, place it in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service, because this isn't just about money. It's about history. It's about holding a piece of America's 200th birthday in the palm of your hand. And for a lucky few, it's about turning that piece of history into a life-changing sum over $1 million. The search is real. The coins are out there. And somewhere, maybe in your change jar, in your car's cup holder, or sitting in your wallet right now, a 1776 to 1976 D Washington quarter could be waiting to change your life. It looked like an ordinary quarter, dull, worn, passed through thousands of hands over the decades, and yet, the small piece of metal, this forgotten 1978 no-mint mark Washington quarter, would one day shock the coin world, selling for over $1 million. The story begins in the late 1970s, a time of economic shifts, inflation fears, and a U.S. mint under pressure to churn out millions of coins as quickly as possible. Somewhere in that rush, something happened. Something the mint never intended. You see, not all 1978 quarters are created equal. Most are worth exactly 25 cents. But a handful, so rare, so unusual, can command staggering prices at auction. We're talking up to $1.7 million for a single coin. And the reason? It comes down to a secret most people never notice, until it's too late. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector in Ohio, just like you, was sifting through loose change after buying a coffee. There it was, a 1978 quarter with no mint mark. He almost tossed it into a vending machine without a second thought, but something about the surface caught his eye. The luster, the sharpness, and then, the missing letter. Normally, quarters minted in Philadelphia that year bore no mint mark at all, but this one had a combination of traits that shouldn't exist together. Flawless strike, rare planchet, and a minting error so subtle that most dealers miss it entirely. Collectors were shocked when this coin hit the auction block. Bidding began modestly, but within minutes, the price skyrocketed. $50,000, $100,000, $200,000. The room was silent except for the auctioneer's voice growing sharper, faster. Then, the hammer dropped at over $1.5 million. A record. The man who found it didn't know he was holding a treasure until he compared it to an ordinary 1978 quarter under a magnifying glass. And what he saw changed his life forever. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You see, in 1978, the U.S. Mint struck Washington quarters in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark, but certain experimental strikes that year used an unusual planchet mix and an early die design intended for testing. These coins weren't supposed to be released. Yet somehow, a handful slipped into everyday circulation. Imagine this. You've spent years looking through pocket change. You know the dates. You know the mint marks. But this was different. The weight, the edges, the reflective surfaces, everything hinted that this coin didn't belong in circulation at all. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins whenever they appear. Auction houses whisper about them. Private sales happen in the shadows. And each time one surfaces, the price seems to climb higher. But there's more to the story. Some of these million-dollar quarters also carry microscopic doubling, a doubling so faint that under poor light, it disappears. But under magnification, the date, the word liberty, or even the motto "In God We Trust" will reveal ghost-like second impressions. This is a dead giveaway that you've got one of the rarest quarters in U.S. history, and yet, most people never even check. One Florida collector found his in a jar of coins he'd been saving for laundry. He sold it privately for a reported $1.2 million. Another coin, graded at a perfect mint state, brought in nearly the same amount at a major auction, but the strangest twist? Some of these coins may be sitting unnoticed in old collections, misidentified as common circulation strikes. What happened next made history. In 2019, a coin grading service received what they thought was a routine 1978 quarter. They opened the envelope, examined it, and froze. Perfect strike. Proof like Fields. And no mint mark. but with a die variety only seen in internal mint records. They knew instantly, this was the coin that could break records. And it did. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't believe it. And ordinary people like you, began rifling through their change with new urgency, because here's the truth, you don't need to be a millionaire to find $1 million coin. You just need to know exactly what to look for. So here's how you identify the 1978 no-mint mark Washington quarter that could be worth up to $1.7 million. First, the coin must be in exceptional condition, mint state or proof-like surfaces. Second, check the weight. The rare ones often weigh slightly different due to planchet variations. Third, look closely for doubling on the date and lettering. Fourth, the edges should be crisp, with fully defined reading. And finally, trust your instincts. If the coin feels different, heavier, or more reflective than normal, it's worth getting graded. Avoid the most common mistake, thinking all no-mint mark 1978 quarters are valuable. Only a tiny fraction are. Condition, die variety, and planchet type make all the difference between 25 cents and a fortune, and remember, these coins are still out there. Sitting in coffee shop change jars. Lurking in dusty drawers. Waiting in old coin albums that haven't been opened in decades. This coin almost slipped through history, unnoticed, unvalued, and not appreciated. It passed from hand to hand, from pocket to pocket, paying for gum, coffee, and bus rides, until one day, someone looked closer. What they found turned an ordinary Washington quarter into a life-changing fortune, worth over $1.8 million. Imagine holding in your hand something so familiar, yet so rare, that experts agree you may never see another like it in your lifetime. This is the story of the 1986 mint mark Washington quarter, and why it has set the coin world ablaze. Back in 1986, the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of Washington quarters, most of them ordinary. Everyday. Forgettable, but deep within the roar of the minting presses, under the blinding sparks of steel dies striking copper nickel planchets, a mistake was made. A mistake so subtle, so hidden, that only the most watchful eyes could ever detect it. At first, no one noticed. These special quarters left the mint, tumbled into bankrolls, and spread across America's pockets like seeds scattered to the wind. Days turned into weeks, weeks into decades, and the secret slept quietly in drawers, change jars, and cash registers. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A single 1986 quarter surfaced at a small estate sale. It looked normal enough, George Washington's proud profile, the familiar eagle on the reverse, but under a magnifying glass, a collector saw something that made his pulse race. The mint mark, the tiniest of details, held the key to a staggering fortune. You see, some 1986 quarters were struck using a misaligned die, creating a barely perceptible doubling effect on the date. And mint mark. On others, an experimental planchet, never meant for circulation, was accidentally used. These planchets contained a higher silver content than standard copper nickel quarters, making them an unintentional throwback to pre-1965 silver coinage. He paid less than $1 for it at the sale. Weeks later, it crossed the auction block, and when the final hammer fell, it sold for over $1.8 million. Dealers were stunned, collectors couldn't believe it, phone lines lit up. Across the numismatic community, how could an everyday 1986 quarter be worth more than a luxury home? This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The doubling on the date, especially the 1986, appears almost ghost-like, a shadowed repetition just behind the primary numbers. The P mint mark may look slightly stretched, tilted, or thicker than usual. On silver planchet errors, the coin feels subtly different in the hand, heavier, colder to the touch, with a distinct ringing ping when tapped. But here's the twist that keeps experts awake at night: these coins are still out there. In bankrolls, in cash registers, in the dusty jar on top of your fridge, and because the difference is so slight, almost no one notices them. One retired postal worker in Ohio found his in a roll of quarters from his local bank. He thought it looked a bit shinier than the others, so he set it aside. Months later, after reading about rare 1986 errors, he had it tested. Wrong planchet. That coin alone paid off his mortgage. Even circulated examples of these rare 1986 quarters, with visible doubling or on silver planchets, can still sell for tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on condition. And pristine, uncirculated specimens, they can cross into the $1 million realm, if you're lucky enough to find one. Collectors were shocked when auction houses reported multiple private sales over the years, each edging closer to the $2 million mark. The demand is fierce, dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, and the competition is unlike anything seen in modern coin hunting. If you want to check, here's what to do. First, find your magnifying glass, look closely at the date. Any shadowing, doubling, or distortion in 1986 could be assigned next. Examine the P mint mark. Is it thick, tilted, or unusually shaped? Then, weigh the coin. A normal 1986 quarter weighs 5.67 grams. A silver planchet version? Closer to 6.25 grams. And finally, listen. A silver coin has a high, clear ring. A copper nickel coin sounds duller, shorter. Even if your coin looks perfect, don't dismiss it. Minting errors can be microscopic, and the only way to be sure is to have it graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC, because right now, somewhere in America, another person is about to pull a coin from their change that will change their life forever. It could be the barista at your coffee shop, the teenager at the laundromat, or it could be you, the 1986 P. Mint mark Washington quarter is more than just a coin. It's a reminder that life's biggest treasures often hide in plain sight, waiting for the right person to notice. It was almost tossed into a parking lot coin tray, just another worn quarter, a piece of change that looked no different from the rest, but this single 1983 quarter sold for more than most people make in their entire lifetime. Not hundreds, not thousands. It went for nearly $2 million, and here's the truth that will send chills down your spine. There could be one sitting in your pocket right now. You see, in 1983, something strange happened inside the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia. A mistake so small, so invisible to the untrained eye, that most people will never spot it. Yet for the lucky few who know what to look for, this error can mean a life-changing payday. Collectors still whisper about it, dealers still hunt for it, and every time a rare example surfaces, the bidding wars get fiercer, because everyone knows this coin's value keeps climbing. But before I reveal exactly what to look for, you need to hear the story. Because once you do, you'll never look at a quarter the same way again. In the early 1980s, the U.S. Mint was under pressure, the nation's economy was unstable, and coin production was rushed to meet growing demand. In 1982, they'd even skipped producing mint sets entirely, something that almost never happens, and in 1983, the same thing happened again. No official mint sets, no collector-grade strikes, just millions of coins thrown into circulation straight from the presses. That decision would change everything. Without those mint sets, the only way to find a pristine 1983 P quarter was to pull it from circulation almost immediately, and most didn't survive. They were spent, scratched, dropped, and beaten down by decades of use. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. During this time, a small number of 1983 P quarters left the mint with a dramatic and very costly error. Some were struck on planchets meant for other coins, others had doubled dies, where the design was imprinted twice in a perfect, ghost-like overlap. But the most sought after are the examples with sharp, bold doubling on the reverse, especially in the word e pluribus unum and the eagle's feathers. Of this tiny, almost invisible detail is why some of these coins are worth over $1 million today. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In the early 2000s, a collector sorting through old change came across a brilliant, untouched 1983 P quarter. At first, he didn't think much of it until he noticed the crisp, doubled lettering shimmering under magnification. He sent it to be graded. When the results came back, it was certified in nearly perfect condition, a miracle for a coin that had been in circulation. At auction, it triggered a bidding frenzy. When the hammer fell, the price tag was staggering, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and with every passing year, as collectors realized how few survived in high grade, the value skyrocketed. The top graded examples now push toward the $1.9 million mark, a record no one saw coming for a simple Washington quarter. Think about that. A coin most people toss into vending machines without a second thought can quietly hold the power to change someone's life forever. And here's where you need to pay attention. The telltale signs are subtle, but once you know them, you'll never unsee them. First, check the date, 1983, and look for the P mint mark just above the or in quarter on the obverse. Next, flip it over. Use a magnifying glass or, better yet, a jeweler's loupe. Examine the eagle on the reverse. Look closely at e pluribus unum. If the letters appear doubled, with sharp, split serifs, you might be holding a jackpot. Also, check the eagle's tail feathers. Doubling there is another key sign. But here's the cruel twist. Many people mistake simple coin wear for doubling. That's why it's vital to understand the difference between machine doubling, which lowers value, and true doubled dies, which can send a coin's price into the stratosphere. True doubling will have clear separation in the design, like two identical images slightly offset from each other. Machine doubling, by contrast, looks flat and shelf-like. Get it wrong, and you'll be heartbroken. Get it right, and you could be holding a retirement fund in the palm of your hand. Collectors are scouring coin rolls, bank boxes, even old jars in attics, desperate to find one. Some have turned up in the most unlikely places: gas station tills, school fundraisers, even casino slot machine payouts. Every time one appears, the news spreads like wildfire. And here's the part that gives me goosebumps. the majority of surviving million-dollar quality examples are still undiscovered. They're out there, sitting quietly in circulation, waiting for the right pair of eyes to spot them. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you sort through the coins in your kitchen drawer, pause for a moment, check each 1983p quarter carefully. That small glint of doubled lettering could be the start of the most unbelievable story of your life, because for one lucky collector, one ordinary night turned into a moment that changed everything. A coin he almost spent without thinking became the key to a future he never imagined, and that's the magic of coin hunting. It's not just about metal and mint marks, it's about the possibility that at any moment you could uncover something the world thought was gone. It started like any ordinary day. A man in Ohio was emptying his pockets after a quick stop at the gas station. Loose change clinked onto the kitchen table, a couple of pennies, a nickel, a dime, and 1/4. He almost didn't look twice, but something about it felt different. The edges were sharper, the luster almost too bright for a coin that had supposedly been in circulation for decades. And that's when his life changed forever, because that ordinary-looking quarter, a 1965 Washington quarter with no mint mark, sold for nearly $1 million. Why would anyone pay such an unimaginable price for a single coin worth just 25 cents? The answer takes us deep into one of the most mysterious transitions in American coin history. In 1965, the U.S. Mint was in a state of chaos, silver prices were soaring, and the government made a shocking decision: end the production of 90% silver coins. For decades, quarters had been made from solid silver. But starting in 1965, they switched to a copper-nickel plaid composition, a cheaper mix. Collectors were outraged. People hoarded the last silver coins, and in the middle of this storm, mistakes began to happen, big ones, the kind of mistakes that could turn an ordinary coin into $1 million legend. Some 1965 quarters were accidentally struck on leftover 90% silver planchets from the previous year. These coins were never supposed to exist, they slipped through unnoticed, scattered quietly into circulation. For years, no one knew. No one cared, until one day, a sharp-eyed collector spotted the impossible, a 1965 date, but in silver. The coin world went wild. But that's not the only twist in this story. You see, the mint also decided to remove mint marks from coins in 1965, another controversial move aimed at discouraging hoarding. That means every quarter from that year has no mint mark, but only a few, an unbelievably tiny handful, have that secret silver composition, and finding one is like stumbling across a buried chest of gold. Here's the part that stunned collectors across the nation. One of these silver-struck 1965 quarters went to auction, and bidding was so fierce that the final hammer price reached close to $1 million. Imagine holding something so small, yet so life-changing. One man's pocket change became a once-in-a-lifetime payday, and yet, most people have no idea what they're holding. Every day, these quarters could be slipping through hands, sitting in coffee cans, hiding in coin jars. Some might already be in your house, right now. But here's the catch: you can't just look at the date and call it a day. The secret lies in the metal itself. A normal 1965 quarter will have a duller, sandwiched edge, a clear copper line visible between the nickel layers. Its edge will shine with a clean, uniform silver tone, no copper in sight, and when you drop it on a hard surface, the ring will be higher, purer, a crystal clear chime instead of a flat clunk. But here's where most people miss out: some of these $1 million coins don't even look perfect. They may have scratches, or even discoloration, but the silver content makes them priceless to the right buyer, and in the hands of a top auction house, even a worn example could fetch tens of thousands, or more. Still, the biggest prizes go to those untouched, gleaming survivors, the coins that somehow escaped decades of use. One such coin was found, uncirculated, in an old bankroll that had sat forgotten in a basement for over 40 years. When the roll was opened, the silver 1965 quarter was there, sparkling as if it had been struck yesterday. That coin, that survivor, became the talk of the coin world. Dealers fought over it, collectors whispered its name like a forbidden treasure, and when it finally sold, jaws hit the floor. Nearly $1 million for a coin worth a quarter on paper. What if your coin jar, the one you never think about, holds the same hidden fortune? What if your next piece of pocket change is your ticket to a new life? Because here's the truth: the U.S. Mint has never revealed exactly how many of these silver 1965 quarters escaped. Some experts believe fewer than a dozen exist, others think there could be a few more, still hiding, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a bit of luck. And that's why, even today, collectors are obsessed with checking every single quarter from 1965. The search never ends, because each coin you pick up might be the one that turns a regular day into a story you'll tell for the rest of your life, the one that proves treasures can still be found in plain sight. And here's how to know if you've struck gold, or rather, silver. No mint mark. Check the coin's edge for that pure silver shine, no copper stripe. Weigh it. A normal plaid quarter weighs 5.67 grams, but a silver quarter? About 6.25 grams, that tiny difference is the key to unlocking a fortune. Collectors have sold these rare errors for prices that can pay off houses, retire debts, or fun dreams, but they only go to those who look closely at the rest. They spend them away without ever knowing. So the next time you get change at the grocery store, the next time you pour out the dusty jar of coins, remember this story. Remember that one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and remember that the next one could be yours, because this exact quarter could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It was just an ordinary day in Denver, or so it seemed. A man walked into a small-town diner, jingling some loose change in his pocket. Among the dimes, nickels, and quarters, one coin caught his eye, not because it looked special, but because it didn't. It was a plain 1995 D Washington quarter, the kind you'd pass over without a second thought. He almost used it to pay for coffee, almost. But that single moment, that 1 second of hesitation, turned into a life-changing discovery. That ordinary looking quarter was worth over $1 million. Most people will never notice this coin, most people will spend it without a glance, but the few who know the secret are quietly hunting for it in their change every single day. You see, the 1995 D Washington quarter isn't rare because of how many were made. In fact, millions rolled off the Denver Mint presses that year. The rarity comes from something far stranger, and far more dangerous for the Mint's reputation. Somewhere in the chaos of production, a tiny, almost invisible flaw crept into a small batch of these coins. It wasn't a dramatic misprint you could spot from across the room. No, it was subtle, devious, the kind of flaw you could stare at for hours and never notice, unless you knew exactly where to look. And here's where the story takes a turn, because this wasn't just a minting mistake. It was the kind of error so perfect, so rare, that it became the stuff of coin collector legend. Dealers were stunned, auction houses whispered about it behind closed doors, and when one finally surfaced in a high-profile sale, the bidding war that followed shocked the coin world. What started at a modest price quickly spiraled out of control, hands shot up, voices clashed, hearts pounded, and when the gavel finally fell, that humble little quarter had sold for nearly $1.1 million. That wasn't the only one out there. The man who sold it had found it in a jar on his kitchen counter. A jar filled with pocket change he'd been tossing coins into for years. He almost didn't check them after all. Who expects a miracle hiding between a couple of beat-up nickels? But what happened next stunned even the most experienced numismatists, because when experts examined it, they realized it wasn't just a fluke. It belonged to a mysterious run of quarters, all minted in Denver, all carrying the exact same strange flaw. And here's the part that'll make your heart race: no one knows exactly how many were made. It could be a handful. It could be dozens. It could be one more, sitting in your change right now. Collectors are scouring coin rolls from banks, treasure hunters are checking vending machines, laundromats, parking meters. Every time a 1995 D quarter passes through someone's hands, there's a tiny chance they're holding a fortune without realizing it. And how can you tell if the one in your pocket is worth a life-changing sum? Here's where the real secret comes in. On most quarters from 1995, George Washington's profile is sharp, crisp, perfectly aligned with the rim. But on these rare Denver Mint errors, something went wrong during the die creation process. Washington's portrait sits ever so slightly off-center, and the rim, instead of forming a perfect circle, shows a faint doubling, not the dramatic doubling you see on common error coins. This is delicate, almost ghost-like, and it only appears under certain angles of light. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing. To the trained collector, it's a jackpot. And there's another twist. The D-Mint mark on these ultra-rare quarters sometimes appears slightly misaligned, almost drifting toward the edge. In extreme cases, the Mint mark looks faint, as though it's fading into the coin's surface. That subtle imperfection is what separates a coin worth 25 cents from one worth over $1 million. But don't be fooled, the market is full of coins that look kind of like the real thing. If you think you've found one, it needs professional grading. A top-tier grading company will verify it, certify it, and protect it in a sealed holder, turning it into a treasure that can fetch unbelievable sums at auction. And here's the chilling part: for every confirmed find, there are likely dozens of these coins still out there, quietly changing hands in grocery stores, toll booths, and gas stations. Every time you let a 1995 D quarter slip through your fingers without checking, you could be giving away a fortune. Think about it. One man's coffee money became $1 million miracle. One forgotten coin jar turned into a life-changing payday. And the next discovery could be yours. Check the date, check the mint mark, look for that whisper of doubling, that slight misalignment, that ghost of a flaw, because the difference between 25 cents and $1.1 million could be sitting in your pocket right now. This exact quarter could be in your change, your desk drawer, or buried in a jar at the back of your closet, waiting for the one person who knows the secret to find it.